just before I start, I would like to just say that filmmaking is not a job. In running of a set, more than the director, sometimes his associate director or his first AD,
Right.
that is the person who's the most important person.
Okay.
Our minds realize at a very young age that we can bend reality.
Yes.
Presenting Shah Rukh Khan in Jawan was not only presenting the character of Vikram Rathod,
Yes.
it was presenting Shah Rukh Khan with what was happening around Shah Rukh Khan.
Yes.
And what people expect of Shah Rukh Khan, what the
Yes.
fans want to see of Shah Rukh Khan.
Yes.
So the evolution of cinema is actually the evolution of editing. Don't burden us with changing the world.
Agree.
Don't burden us with giving a social message each time.
Hello and welcome to the Civilization Project. For the last 2.5 years, I've been studying how we make decisions in life. And what I've realized is the decisions we make on 5 levels, starting with the decisions we make for self, followed by the decisions we make as teams, then as a society, then as a nation state, and finally as a civilization. These decisions are constructing our experience of reality. And that is the idea behind the Civilization Project. Can we make better decisions for a better reality for the entire human civilization? One of the important elements of our society, our reality, is funnily the films that we watch. And that is essentially what I want to have a chat about today. Please welcome Suhrud, a very good friend of mine, who's a producer, who's a director. And today we'll be diving deep into this process of making films using the lens of decisions that go behind the set. Suhrud, welcome to the podcast and hoping to have a very fun conversation with you.
I hope so. You've given a very gargantuan introduction about civilization.
Right.
So I don't know how I'll be able to live up to making
No
decisions
stress,
with
no
civilization, but
No stress.
we'll try.
No stress, no stress. So before we dive deep into the technicalities of filmmaking, there's this one statement which has stayed with me for a long time now. I probably heard this in one of the podcasts. The statement goes like, we humans make sense of this world through the stories, right? Numbers, facts, figures, all of these are good to have. But essentially, we humans understand this world through stories. That is essentially also why the stories our grandparents used to tell us in our childhood. They're very important because they set the foundation stone of how we behaved. But when it comes to storytelling, film is essentially the biggest medium of storytelling, right? Can you tell me what are the key decision makers which essentially decide the fate of a film, right? In terms of how the film is produced and who are the key decision makers of this film?
First of all, thanks for having me. You rightly started off with the right example of our grandparents telling us stories.
Right.
Because that's where we all get introduced to a world which is beyond our world.
Yes.
Where animals can speak.
Yes.
Amazing things can happen. Physics
Yes.
and chemistry, they're your puppets. You can do
Yes.
whatever you want with them. So our minds realize at a very young age that we can bend reality.
Yes.
When we were in film school, we were told, which is actually a very, which boosts your ego at some point, but then you have to come down to reality. But we were always told that you are like God.
Right.
Because when you're telling a story, you are essentially creating a world that doesn't exist.
Yes.
So, and we used to, for a while, feel like God, that, we are creating the characters that we want, we are giving them the motivations that we want,
Yes.
we're giving them the flaws that we want,
Yes.
we are giving them the solutions. So, in a way, this sense of creation, this power that you have
Yes.
when you're telling a story, it's tremendous. And when
Yes.
you're a storyteller, how you harness that power becomes very important. So, right from an early age, also we have a very strong way of oral history,
Right.
what we call Maukik Parampara
Yes.
in Marathi, where history has come down, someone has told a story and then that story gets added. It's like Chinese whispers, it
Yes.
just gets added, and what we have today may or may not be what exactly happened, but it is a great story. So,
Yes.
we like to believe it, we love to believe it. And that shapes our psyche, that shapes us as a community, as a society, as a civilization,
Yes.
as you said. So, that storytelling is ingrained in all of us. And as far as filmmaking, as you said, you called it the mother of storytelling.
Yes.
I would rather look at it as a coming together of storytelling, because filmmaking in itself is a very, very young art form.
Okay.
It's probably one of the youngest art forms, and we are still just scratching the surface as to what filmmaking can do.
Right.
If you look at painting, if you look at literature, if you look at poetry,
Yes.
if you look at music, they have a much larger history
Right.
than filmmaking. So filmmaking is, if you look at the life form, it's at a very nascent stage.
Right.
You know, we're still taking baby steps as to understanding the language of cinema. But what cinema is it brings together all these art forms.
Right.
You have literature in terms of writing.
Yes.
You have painting, the knowledge of painting or the knowledge of lighting in painting
Yes.
is what guides your decisions when it comes to cinematography.
Yes.
You have to make choices regarding music.
Yes.
So your music comes in over there. So all the art forms that we have over the ages taken to a point of not saturation, but we've really peaked in all these art forms. Cinema brings all of them together.
Yes.
So I would say that more than the biggest art form, I would rather say that it is the coming together of all the art forms.
Right.
And
That's a very beautiful way of putting it, if I may just.
yeah,
add to
because
that.
it's also a more practical way of putting it, because
Yes.
that is what you do as a filmmaker.
Right.
When you talk about choices or when you talk about decisions,
Yes.
that is what a director essentially does.
Right.
I want to have the right lighting
Yes.
for that written word,
Yes.
and that written word and that lighting create a feeling in me which needs to be represented by the right music.
Right.
And so these are the choices that a director needs to make so that he or she can convey that story effectively to
Right.
you. And so what happens is that sometimes as an audience, which is fair, as an audience we say ki I didn't like the film,
Right.
maza nahi aaya,
Right.
pata nahi, I don't know what happened, but I didn't like it. In all probability, what has happened is that the coming together of these art forms was not so well meshed and so well put together
Right.
that it didn't feel organic to you.
Right.
It probably didn't feel, it wasn't effective.
Right.
And of course, as an audience, you don't have the tools to articulate that
Right.
as to, okay, that was wrong,
Right.
or that could have been better, or that is what put me off.
Right.
As an audience, you just experience it, and that's
Right.
how it should be. I mean, the
Right.
audience should stay the audience.
Right.
They are the ones who experience an art form without any baggage. They are the
Right.
ones who experience an art form for what it is.
Right.
And that's how it should be. So that is why when you say that a film didn't work, it's because those things didn't come together.
Right.
And which is why a director, that is what he does. He makes the right choice
Right.
of the right cinematographer for the right script, for
Right.
the right music director for the right script. So that's why I say that it's a coming together.
Wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. But then again, that begs me to ask you a question, because this entire process of filmmaking, it is a long process, right? So we've seen the behind the scenes videos that come out once in a few while. But where does this process actually start? What is probably the director's first decision, which leads to a successful or not, but which leads to a final product, which is that film? What is that first decision where the entire journey starts?
First of all, the film can come from anywhere.
Okay.
So it can come from a director,
Okay.
and a director may feel that I have something in mind. I just have maybe a gist.
Okay.
I just have maybe two characters. I just have maybe a situation
Okay.
which can be expanded, and I find it interesting. I
Okay.
feel that there is potential in it.
Okay.
Then the director would probably say that, okay, I'll get X. I have options of X, Y, Z writers.
Right.
So then making a choice of which writer is suited best
Right.
to expand this story of mine.
Right.
And that decision may differ from idea to idea, from film
Right.
to film.
Right.
If it is a romance that he wants to
Right.
direct, then maybe he'll go with one writer who
Right.
he feels
Right.
has more control over those emotions, over the idea of romance.
Right.
The director also agrees with the writer on the idea of what they're trying to say.
Right.
And then he chooses the writer. But also a story can come from a writer. A
Right.
writer may have a script,
Right.
something that he wants to say.
Right.
And then he may hunt for a director.
Right.
Even when he's hunting for a director, he would hunt for a director who he feels is best suited for that script.
Right.
If it's an action film, then he would rather have someone who has the technical finesse to handle an action film, who understands the language of an action film,
Right.
of what choices need to be made so that you're on the edge of your seat.
Right.
And that is what an action film basically is.
Right.
So choosing the right director or approaching the right director with his or her script. So in that case, it can come from the writer.
Right.
A same story can come from the producer. That, you know, I read something somewhere.
Right.
I read a book and I feel that this can be a great film. And then he will go to the writer that he feels is appropriate, the director that he feels is appropriate.
Right.
So a story can come from anywhere. Now, it is also a lot of fun to understand. Let's look from a writer's perspective, from a director's perspective. So filmmaking, just before I start, I would like to just say that filmmaking is not a job.
Right.
You know, you can't switch off.
Right.
Or you don't, rather. Forget can't, you don't switch off. You just
It's just who you are. Probably.
it becomes your lifestyle.
Right.
It's filmmaking is a way of life.
Right.
There are no Sundays, there are no Mondays.
Right.
Even when you're doing nothing is probably the time when you're working the hardest.
Right.
Because your mind is always
Constantly at work.
functioning, and that is something that is inherent, it comes naturally to you. So naturally what happens is that as a maker or as a creative person, you're seeing a story everywhere. And then you land up with 10 stories that you want to tell.
Right.
But you can make only one. Physically, you can make only one story. So then how do you arrive at, how you're grappling with the decision of,
Yes.
I want to make this story. So how do you arrive at that? And everyone has their own different way of arriving at that decision, that out of these 10 stories,
Right.
this is the one that I finally want to do.
Right.
Now, as I said, everyone has their own trick. For me, it's the story that stays with me the longest, the
Okay.
longevity of a story inside me.
Okay.
For me, that's a good yardstick of how badly I want to tell it.
Can you dive deeper a bit on this? Because this is very interesting.
Yeah, so
The
I'll give
words
an
that you use.
example.
Right.
What happens a lot with me is, and just not me, it happens with almost every person working in the creative field. For example, with me, it happens that when I'm about to fall asleep, like just about to fall asleep,
Okay.
I'm almost asleep, but not fully there yet. Something goes in my head and I feel ki, my goodness, this is the best idea I've thought of yet.
Okay.
And this is just going to, मतलब ये तो खत्म अभी सब दुनिया खत्म है अभी.
Okay.
And I quickly just write it down, or I record it on my phone. And the next morning I hear it, I'm like, this is terrible.
Okay.
I mean, this sucks. I mean, this is really bad. So I discard it immediately.
Okay.
Or then, so there are many times that stories come, they go.
Right.
I mean, if we sit right now over here and if we take 10 minutes,
Right.
we can come with 10 different stories.
Fair enough.
But, so if I get a story, then I say, okay, this is nice, let it be. And then I just let it marinate. I just
Okay.
let it just stay, brine in its own salt.
Right.
Just let it be. Then maybe 10 days down the line, something happens,
Right.
it connects to that story. Then I'm like, okay, this is still alive in me.
Right.
This hasn't died. It hasn't
Right.
died
It's
a
still there in
natural
your
death.
system.
Yeah, it hasn't died a natural death. It's still there. And then it grows so much inside you that it's impossible for you to not tell it anymore. Or it's
Interesting.
impossible for you to not write it anymore, because it just consumes your mental space in such a way that you
Right.
can't stop thinking about it.
Right.
And for me, when I reach that point, that is when I feel that, okay, this is something that I want to make. But
Interesting.
again, it's different for everyone. So I made my first film in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, if you ask me right now if I have an idea for my second film, I have 10 ideas. But right now, even I'm in that state of, which is the one that's
Consumed you.
consumed me, I haven't really found, so I take my time. I'm not in a hurry to
Right.
make my second film. So
And I think
So I'm
this
waiting.
is a field where you can't rush these kind of decisions, right? You cannot, there's no timing to market, and there's no, because rushing essentially also kills the creative process in some
I don't
some
know,
way.
but there's no ground rule to that. Honestly, some people can work really fast.
Okay.
Some people write really fast.
Okay.
I don't, and I think there's no one way to it.
Right.
You have to find out what suits you.
Right.
You have to find out what size fits you the best.
Right.
So there's no ground rule to it.
Right.
what may work for one person, like I have friends who are constantly working.
Okay.
They just don't get tired.
Okay.
And they disconnect, like, and that happens with all of us, I think, that, you know, you tend to disconnect with the film once it's done.
Right.
Once it's released,
Right.
you just don't want to anything to do with it.
Right.
You just want to move on to the next one. And some people don't disconnect.
Right.
So there's no ground rule for that. I mean, I know people who are working on 2 films at the same time, 3
Right.
films at the same time. While they're shooting one film, the pre-production for something else has begun.
Right.
When they're finishing a film, they'll start shooting for something else. They can do that. Some can't. I can't do that.
Right.
For me, it's personally, I get physically and emotionally so drained out after a project that I
Right.
just need to just step back
Right.
and revitalize myself, get ready, because it's a hard thing to make a film.
I can understand.
In whatever capacity you want. It's a hard thing. So I am someone who needs that
Right.
time off, but for others it's not. So there's no ground rule to that. But one thing is for sure, that when it comes to writing, you just have to you should just keep on writing.
Okay.
That is one thing I found common in all my peers and in people senior to us, that if you're a writer, then just keep writing. Just, you know, you get, as a writer, I just read a quote today that writing is one profession where you get better with age. It's not like
Kya
an
baat hai.
athlete. An athlete gets weaker
Yes.
with age, but a
Yes.
writer becomes stronger with age.
Yes.
Because you're gathering life experiences,
Yes.
you're falling down, getting hurt, getting back up, and that teaches you a lot. So as a writer, your shelf life is much higher
Yes.
than in many professions. So there's no, like, I don't put a time limit to it, or people are in a hurry that I want to make a film really fast, I want to
Right.
write something really soon.
Right.
I always suggest that, you know, take a time. There's no hurry. You know, almost all of it. You have Martin Scorsese's film has released this week,
Right.
and he's really old, and he's still peaking. I mean,
Yes.
he's not even
He's
peaking.
making exceptional
Exceptional films. Clint Eastwood is still making films.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg is still making
Yes.
films. So, and many of these directors in India or abroad, they've peaked at a very late stage in their life. They peaked when they're 45 and 50.
Right.
So sometimes it takes time, and sometimes you have a director like Karthik Subbaraj in Tamil cinema who made his first film. I think he was 23 when he made his first film, and he's become a sensation. And now he's, I think he's my age. He's 37, maybe 30,
Okay.
37, and he's already directed some of the biggest Tamil films, and he's worked with Rajinikanth and
Right.
etc. etc. So everyone has their own journey.
Right.
There is no ground rule to it.
Right.
You just have to figure it out for yourself
Of course.
and keep going and just keep on
Yes.
doing it.
So I think there's this one story of KFC also, right? The founder of KFC, Dr. Sanders. He also founded KFC at the age of 63. He kept on struggling for his entire life.
Yeah.
And so there was this trend beach me on Twitter where everybody was talking about every different person having their own pace of life, and then
Yeah.
adjusting to your own, accepting and adjusting to your own pace of life is more important than comparing yourself with someone else. But when you were narrating your story, what I was getting was when you mentioned that you let the story consume you, right? What I'm probably guessing right now here is you get involved with those characters, you start developing those characters in your head. The characters or the fundamental characters in that story essentially start making a space in your head, and you yourself probably get attached to those characters to some extent. And probably that could be a style of a lot many directors as well. Taking my own personal experience, not in films, but when I used to do theatre, I found myself a lot of times attached to the characters that I was developing. Contrary to that, I'm guessing there would be a few directors who are also very professional about it, right? Who don't get attached to the stories, who are doing it like very methodically, very meticulously, following a certain set process, not getting emotionally involved per se, but they're executing that project. Is that also case with directors?
See, I don't think getting emotionally attached or getting too much in love with the character, I don't think it's as romantic as we say it is.
To be honest, it's very troublesome after a point.
No, romantic. I'm in the sense that it's not as passionate as I'm
Okay.
saying it is.
Okay.
It may be for some people. When I say that I get consumed by it, um, for me, it's not as, what do you say, non-negotiable.
Okay.
You know, if a character doesn't work, I am brutal enough to
Okay.
dissociate myself and just change it. You
Right.
know, that this is not working, just change it.
Right.
Or you find something better,
Right.
then you change that.
Right.
Because it helps you tell the story in a better way. So
Right.
when there is a very a poetic, romantic part of us that would like to think that I have written a character and I'm so attached with it, I'm so in love with it.
Right.
But I don't think it's that passionate, at least for me.
Okay.
It's pretty much cutthroat. It's at the end of the day, they are your tools.
Right.
You know, they are your tools to tell that story.
Right.
So if that tool isn't right for that box of tools,
Right.
then you put it in another box. You use
Right.
it somewhere else. But that your toolbox has to fit properly into all those
Right.
holes and shelves for you to tell the story right. So I am pretty like again I'll give you an example of June, the film that I
Right.
directed. The starting point of the film came from me,
Okay.
where I had two characters, a younger boy, an older woman. I had them in a setting, and then when I was talking with my writer about this, my writer, and that is when writers and collaborators come into the picture and how they can completely change you know the nature of your film or take it to another level. And when you have a good collaborator with you, that's essentially why you want to collaborate with good people.
Right.
So when Nikhil Mahajan was the writer, he heard of the story. He added in a few things. He changed the characters and tweaked the characters in such ways that it wasn't possible for me to, because I'm not inherently a writer.
Okay.
I would come up with stories, I would come up with plots, I would come up with you know, a basic structure of the story, but then there has to be a methodical, academic, professional way of writing a script. That is where a writer definitely
Right.
comes into the picture. So the writer took it on such a different level, Nikhil took it on such a different level, that those characters, but I was happy with it.
Right.
I wasn't stuck in mujhe yahi chahiye,
Right.
because I have invested so much into them.
Right.
No, if it is making it better, these are my tools, you are
Right.
giving better tools to work with.
Right. Because
And
ultimately it's the story that matters.
It's just what you want to say is
Right.
that's what matters.
Right.
So that's an example of how if something better comes your way, then
Right.
I am someone who does not or would not feel guilty or feel bad about letting it happen organically.
Right.
So as I said, it's that poetic, romantic thought that my characters, you know,
Right.
will live like this, and I
Right.
can't change that. That you have to be flexible
Right.
a bit, because good things come your way,
Right.
and you have to accept those things.
Right. Now, there's one more parallel thought which is running in my head when you're saying this. So typically when we talk about superstars, right? So let's say you're doing a film with Shah Rukh, or let's say you're doing a film with Amir or any of these superstars. We've heard stories that when these actors come onto the stage, invariably there are changes made to the script to suit their role better or to make their role better. So I think that is also one thing I would love to hear from you. When working with a team, right? So again, film is a team job. It's not an individual job.
Yeah.
A director may be responsible in terms of making some decisions, but then there are other people involved as well. So how does this entire team function? And second, does having superstars on your set influence your decision making? And at times, are there situations where you have to take a backstage because सामने वाला superstar है और मेरे को थोड़ा backstage लेना पड़ेगा? Have you faced these kind of situations? Are these situations?
See, I have not worked with a superstar yet,
Okay.
to be honest. So I would be just peddling second-hand information.
Okay.
So it's not fair for me to say that.
Fair.
But again, you know, superstars always come with their baggage.
Right.
Superstars are superstars for a reason.
Right.
They transcend, you know, the movie screen, and
Yes.
they're part of your life.
Yes.
So when so being a superstar is, I'm guessing, difficult, and handling a superstar I guess is difficult.
Right.
Because you have to manage the expectations that the fans have.
Yes.
and most of the times it's the fans that are more brutal than anyone else.
Agree.
And in today's day and age of social media, no one is spared.
Yes.
You know, one wrong step and the fans just go
Yes.
against you. So it's more about managing those expectations. So
Okay.
it's not easy to handle a superstar.
Right.
There is a reason why someone like a Shah Rukh Khan or a Salman Khan or an Amir Khan, I mean, if you just take these three, and there are bigger, you know, there's Ranbir
Yes.
Kapoor and Ranveer Singh now. There are the directors who handle these actors, even the directors are made of a different kind of
Right.
metal. You know, they know exactly how to present someone who is so larger than life.
Right.
Like the recent example of Jawan.
Right.
Uh, presenting Shah Rukh Khan in Jawan was not only presenting the character of Vikram Rathod,
Yes.
it was presenting Shah Rukh Khan with what was happening around Shah Rukh Khan
Yes.
and what people expect of Shah Rukh Khan, what the
Yes.
fans want to see of Shah Rukh Khan,
Yes.
and taking those expectations, fulfilling them, and going beyond them.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you don't go beyond them, then it's just another movie. But then when you have to transcend those two,
Yes.
so it's a very difficult task. I don't have an idea about that. And your question was about the
Second one was so there's this entire team which is involved,
Yeah.
right? And superstars, again, if they are on the set, they are a part of that team. But how does this entire team function around the director? How does the decision making get broken down across different teams? And just a broad overlay.
So you
of
have
how
a
it
you have a
works.
very basic hierarchy that always helps in terms of decision making.
Right.
Under the director, you have a set of assistants who take up different jobs. So the workload of the director is divided into all his assistants. One would look at costumes. One would just look at the art and the production design. One would look just at one aspect, like maybe say continuity.
Right.
One would just be a DA, a director's assistant. So once, as a producer or as a director, you know that there is a certain hierarchy that is going to make your life completely easier. Now, in running of a set, more than the director, sometimes his associate director or his first AD,
Right.
that is the person who's the most important person.
Okay.
He is the person, or he or she are the people who run the set.
Okay.
The director doesn't necessarily go around looking at doesn't go micromanaging.
Right.
That is when someone like a first AD or an associate director comes into the picture and he runs the set. He knows
Right.
exactly what the director wants. He is marshalling the troops.
Right.
So that hierarchy really helps in terms of taking decisions. The director, of course, is the final call. He's always presented with what to do,
Okay.
and then he has to make a decision.
Okay.
So directing is more about making choices
Yes.
than anything else. Do you want the color of the wall to be yellow or to be red?
Right.
The director has to take a call.
Right.
Okay, I wanted red. Why? Because red gives me X feeling,
Right.
and I want that feeling for X character,
Right.
and that is going to dive into my story. Do you want this music piece? Do you want a trumpet or do you want a harmonica? He listens
Right.
to both. He says that I'll go with the trumpet
Right.
because I want to have this kind of emotion come out in this scene. The trumpet works
Right.
better. The costume. So every department, that is why he's called the captain of the ship. It's his vision.
Right.
Filmmaking is the director's medium.
Right.
Filmmaking is a director's medium, and you would say theater is an actor's medium.
Yes.
So it all comes down to what choices the director makes, and it's all about the choices.
Right.
And he has a hierarchy. He has a team dedicated who assists him, and it's his job to get everyone on the same page.
Right.
If the DOP is on Saturn and the music director is on some other planet, then it doesn't work.
Yes.
He has to make sure that the vision is consistent and everyone is consistent with the vision. So mostly that's the director's job.
Okay. But then, how is there any time where, because again, I'm guessing these are large teams, right? So
Yeah.
I've heard where there are, say, 300 people on set, or at least a part of the team across different departments, so on and so forth. And of course, there will be a lot of delegation. As you said, there's a dedicated costumes team, there's a dedicated arts team,
Yeah.
there's a dedicated camera team and dedicated lights team, so on and so forth. A lot of jobs or work that these different teams are making, they're contributing to the film essentially. But when working with these large teams, have you faced any situation where the creativity is getting compromised because you are running such a large team, and then during the process of managing this entire team, basically creativity is taking a kind of a hit? Have you experienced any of these kind of situations, or is
I think
it
that's the
prevalent?
challenge.
Right.
To not let creativity.
Yeah, because I
get
think that
hampered.
is the biggest challenge for a director, right? So how do you ensure that the story is getting told effectively, but you're not the only one who's working on it? There's 500 people working on it, and each of these individuals again are. So again, where I'm coming from is these five levels of decision making, right? So there are two levels involved here. One is all the different individuals who are playing a role, and then there are teams, and then there are super teams also, because you have our team, and then you have the entire film wala team. There's of course when we deal with such large teams, and the same applies in big companies and big corporates as well. Whenever we are communicating something, there's always communication loss when it goes through a certain hierarchy. But then again, you have to balance your creativity because the story is most important. You mentioned that even you are ready to compromise on the characters, fundamental story characters, but the story is important. But the team that is executing, all those different individuals, their personalities and their roles are also coming into play. Does it have an impact on the final output? And how does a director then manage this entire show with such large teams? Because if I think it was for Bahubali. I think Bahubali holds the record right now in India for the largest team, which was around 3,000 odd people working on just one single film. It must be a very difficult job to coordinate this larger team, right?
Yeah. So the director rarely does that.
Okay.
Coordinating or managing this entire, this whole number of people.
Right.
That's necessarily not the director's job.
Okay.
So before directing, or rather, I've produced more than I've directed.
Okay.
I've directed just one film,
Okay.
but I've produced a lot of films. So my experience of a producer, that is what I bring to the table.
Okay.
That now I've worked mostly with one director,
Okay.
who's been Nikhil Mahajan,
Okay.
and
Yes. I think June was also with Nikhil only, no?
so Nikhil's first film
Mhm.
was Pune 52, which we
Oh,
had
okay.
produced.
Yeah.
Then Nikhil's second film Baji was also which I had produced,
Okay.
and June was my first film as a director,
Oh, okay.
which Nikhil had produced
Okay.
and he had written. So Nikhil and I we collaborate a lot. So
Okay.
we have, we are a very close knit
Okay.
group of friends. There's me, there's Nikhil, there's Vaibhav who directed the film with
Okay.
me. There's Rohit Satpute. So there are 4-5 of us. What we do essentially is we call ourselves, we are a tribe, and we are the jack of all trades for each other.
Okay.
In Marathi, what we call Kami Tithe Ami.
Right.
So if Nikhil is making a film, then Vaibhav will happily go and be an associate for him, even though Vaibhav has directed a film
Right.
already. If I ever need any help, then Nikhil is always there in
Right.
different capacities.
Right.
Tomorrow, when Rohit wants to make a film now, then Vaibhav might come in a different capacity. Nikhil might write and I might produce. So we always try to work, and we are comfortable with each other. We love to work with each
Right.
other. So my work has primarily been as a producer with directing Nikhil's films.
Okay.
And what I try to do as a producer is insulate my director from all the noise around.
Right.
I try to create a safe space for the director in which he can focus on the storytelling part.
Right.
All the other papat pasara and everything else, I'm there for that.
Okay.
Be it talking to the studios, suppose, the directors feel sometimes that, I want a special equipment for this scene.
Right.
I know that it's not in my budget. Now, but trying to give him what he wants, trying to see where I can cut costs somewhere else down the line.
Right.
Now that's my headache.
Got it.
I'll try to give the director exactly what he wants,
Okay.
as much as I can,
Okay.
and at the same time handle the back end part of everything. Of, let's say if a studio is involved, then talking with them about if there is a budget increase,
Right.
if there are any issues, if there are any changes, if we are facing any hurdles, or if we have any thoughts about how we want to release the film, how we want to present the film, the artwork of the film, stuff like that. So as a producer, then you get into the job of handling the crew,
Right.
of creating an environment where uh, you have the right people for the right job, who are happy to be there, happy to work with you, and they know their job so well that you don't need to micromanage.
Right.
Uh, my first assignment, I remember, in a production setup was I was on a set where my first job was to just keep a check on how much tea is being made.
Okay.
You know, how many tea leaves are we bringing? How many
Okay.
packets are we bringing? How much milk are we bringing?
Okay.
And how many cups of tea is getting made are getting made? And so you have generators on set
Yes.
to light up everything. And how much diesel are we consuming? So that was my first job, and that is
Okay.
where I realized that that was the only thing I was doing.
Okay.
And I realized that these are small places where sometimes you don't know that, oh, there is a cost to that.
Right.
Or, oh, you know, here someone can just bump up some money.
Right.
You know, just add a, you know, small bill bump of
Right.
10 rupees. Those 10 rupees may look
Eventually
small,
compound.
but they compound and they become something big.
Yes.
Now, so now I don't do those things. Now, if I'm producing, I don't care about how much tea. I don't even know the figures of how much tea leaves are we bringing and how much milk are we bringing. But I know that lacuna exists.
Right.
I'm aware of it. I know. So even if I have to tell my production, the lowest of the lowest in the hierarchy, if I have to tell him that, boss, this is where your money is going to, you know, leak. These are the places where, you know, there can be holes which you
Right.
need to fix. So when you produce, that is when you have to manage the entire thing. The director doesn't have to do that.
Fair enough.
We try to keep the director, as I said, in a safe space,
Right.
so that he can tell his story.
Got
He
it.
can work with the actors, he can work on the performances, he can work with the DOP, the cinematographer, in getting the right shots and making everything look beautiful the way he or she wants. So that's the job of the producer, to handle that set. Now everyone has their own style. Some are known for shouting at the top of their head. Some are known for not saying anything and then shouting just once.
Right.
So everyone has their own style. So
Right.
you develop your own style of working and
Right.
hope that it works.
What is
And
your
hope
style?
I mean, that's. But I am the latter. Like
Okay.
I'm
You generally like
I'm
to
generally
stay calm on the
extremely
sets.
calm. Extremely calm. I think a lot of that comes from my father, because I've seen him on set and super calm. Like
Okay.
whatever happens, super calm. And then so people may take you. People will say, "Ki, "Arey, he's taking you for a ride," and
Right.
you can see what's happening. Why aren't you saying something? But then when you say something sternly once,
Right.
then people
taken
know that
seriously.
it's taken seriously. If you keep on shouting every day, then after a point,
It loses
you know,
value.
you become deaf to
Yeah.
someone shouting like, "ये तो चिल्लाते ही है, इसका क्या सुनने का?" So I
True.
mean, but it works for some people. I mean, there's no ground rule to that either.
course.
Whatever floats
Of
your
course,
boat. So
of course.
this is how I prefer to work, because I like a silent set. I like a quiet set.
Right.
I like a happy set. I like a set that wants to, you know, because there are times when you need to work around the clock. So for Baji, I remember that we had so normally our shifts are 12 hours.
Okay.
You know, so we actually had to shoot, because we didn't have a location or something, I don't remember.
Okay.
But we had to shoot for 24 hours.
Oh,
So the entire unit was shooting for 24 hours,
wow.
non-stop. The director, right from the director to, you know, the lowest designated person, everyone was, and not a single complaint.
Okay.
It's times like these when your goodwill, of how much goodwill you've generated
Definitely yes.
over that schedule of shoot, comes into play.
Definitely
When
yes.
people are willing to, you know, work 24 hours, कि नहीं sir, आप बोलो, हम करेंगे.
Yeah.
If you've been bad to them, they'll say कि, they'll show you the middle finger and
Yeah.
say, I'm going home.
Shift खत्म हो गया, मैं जा रहा हूँ.
मैं जा रहा हूँ. And I've seen that also. Like
Okay.
I've seen directors treating or being so in love with themselves and not caring about their unit, that I've seen, like there was a film that I was doing, and you know, you have this crane operators, and it was lunchtime, and normally during lunchtime we normally try to have a very fixed lunch schedule, because maybe you are not working physically very hard. Like I'm sitting on a chair and barking orders, but people who are really doing some labor-intensive work, they are hungry. You know, it's
Yes.
afternoon. It's the middle of, you're on the beach. The sun is shining right on top of your head,
Yes.
and you need
Especially
to get
I
food
think the
and water.
set guys, the light guys,
Yeah,
the camera team.
it's very labor-intensive.
Yeah.
So, and those guys you need that nourishment.
Yes.
And if you see that you're not being treated well, one fine day this crane operator he just left it, and he just walked off the set, and we're like, where are you going? He said, I'm going for lunch. It's my time. So, but that is not because he does not want to work hard.
Right.
It came from a place where he felt that he wasn't treated well, he wasn't treated right, and it was well within his right to go and just say, I want to have lunch now.
Right.
So it comes down to how you treat people around you, if you respect them enough, if they feel that there is a mutual respect.
Right.
And unfortunately in India we don't have a culture of dignity of labor.
Yes.
Someone doing an odd job, it's very easy. We are very rude to them.
Yes.
We're extremely obnoxious with them. So, but that's changing. More corporates coming in and more people being aware of things. I think we're slowly getting that.
I think that's very nice.
Yeah, it has to.
It has to happen.
It's every person is a small piece in the puzzle.
Yes.
Every person is a small gear in that clock, and one wrong thing and the entire thing can just collapse. So it's very important to give respect so that you get
Right.
respect back. So
Interesting.
handling a big set is difficult, but it's very gratifying. And then when 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, someone you were nice to on one set
Right.
meets you on some other set, and he remembers that. That's great, because I've had people who I've worked with who I used to love Sikh kebabs,
Okay.
and so there was this guy who used to get Sikh kebabs for me. साहब मैं आपके लिए kebab लाया हूँ.
क्या बात है?
And I used to always tell him कि तू और if he didn't get, I used to tell him कि तू क्यों नहीं लाया? So I used to scold him.
Okay.
मेरे को kebab चाहिए. So then 3 years later I met him, and without me knowing, he went and these are the small gestures.
Yes.
It's nothing. He didn't go out of his means to do anything,
Yes.
but it's these small gestures that as a producer you feel okay, you just
No, I think
you had
this
a good
speaks
set.
volumes of the relationship you build with your team members, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
You can be selfish about it too.
Yes.
It's in your self-interest.
Yes.
Even if you don't want to be altruistic and too emotional about it, don't be a good human being. Don't do it to be a good human being. Just do it for your selfishness.
Yes.
You're going to get a good product.
Yes.
Those people are going to work harder for you.
Yes.
So be selfish about it also. That's also fine. But just treat people well.
Right. Fair enough.
Sorry.
Fair enough. Very interesting. I think we have dived deep into this entire job of filmmaking. I would love to zoom out a little bit
Yeah.
and then probably find some new threads and again deep dive. Just a couple of quick questions. Which is your favorite film?
For the longest time I used to have a favorite film,
Mm-hmm.
which was The Godfather,
Okay.
which still is,
Okay.
because I...
All the three parts or any specific one?
So, I think the second part is the best of the three, I feel.
I
But-
think I concur with you.
Yeah, but I think the one emotionally closest to me is the first part. Because
Yes.
as a kid, I remember reading the book first
Okay.
and then watching the film.
Okay.
And that's why it just stayed with me. So there's no logic to it. I
Okay.
like the film. I like the first part more. And so even in film school, we had a lot of exercises to do with that first film,
Right.
the wedding sequence especially
Right.
of Godfather 1. So I used to, for the longest time, have that this is my favorite film. I used to be like, yeah. But over the years, when you see more and more and more stuff, then I think the concept of favorite film just starts to
Wither out.
fade away a bit, because you like many things.
Yes.
So I love a good slow, meditative, calm film.
Okay.
At the same time, I love a Fast and the Furious 2. I would love a gangster movie. At the same time, I love rom-coms.
Right.
So I love Richard Curtis, the writer who wrote many rom-coms. At the same time, I love someone like an Aaron Sorkin. So now I don't have a favorite film anymore.
Got it.
And I'm quite genre agnostic. I like anything. So I'm not. I cry a lot. I love crying on rom-coms because I think
Kya
they're
baat hai.
just very.
It's a very liberating experience, and I think
No,
it
I
should
think
be.
it's a well-made film. Yeah. It's a well-made film. You feel it. You.
Yeah.
I mean, so I love rom-coms. I just like that's my guilty pleasure. I
Yeah.
hunt for and very surprisingly but thankfully finally about a month back I finally saw Love Actually
Kya baat
and
hai.
I really like that film.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
I really like Richard Curtis, the writer. Some really good stuff. So I have now that idea of my favorite film has in some way withered down over the years.
Okay.
So I don't have a favorite film as such. I don't even have a favorite filmmaker as such.
Okay.
I don't like. I used to have a favorite filmmaker. Then I didn't like some of his work.
Okay.
I'm like, is he still my favorite filmmaker? so I like some films. I like many
Okay.
films. So it just
Okay.
now shows have also come into that
Yes.
realm.
Yes.
See, any story told well, I think connects.
Right.
It may be an ad film. It's a story told well.
Yes.
It may be a feature film. That's a story told well. It may be a song. That's also a story told well. So, any story told well, I think I really like to experience that.
Right.
These days, I've really gotten into a lot of architecture.
Okay. That's
Just
interesting.
Trying to, I don't understand a lot of it, but just looking at buildings, looking at
Okay.
architecture, looking at what people are trying to say through the,
Okay.
through their, we chose. Everyone wants to tell a story. We
Yes.
chose the art of filmmaking
Yes.
to tell a story. Someone like a Frank Lloyd Wright chooses his buildings
Yes.
to tell a story. So we are all trying to tell a story in our own different
Yes.
capacities. So I like all of them. I like to try and dabble into as many things as possible. I
Right.
love to watch a nice painting. I love to read a nice book. And because as I said, filmmaking is culmination of all these
Yes.
things. If you know more about architecture, it is going to reflect in some way
Yes.
into the choices you make as a filmmaker when
Yes.
it comes to building a set.
Yes.
What does this building speak?
Yes.
What story does it tell? So it's always going to help you. So I'm still trying to learn as much as possible on a daily basis.
Got
So
it. So you've essentially answered my next question, which was going to be where do you find your inspiration from? But I think you've already answered that
it's
question.
there
because
everywhere.
It's
It's a very cliched line to say, but
Yeah.
it's there everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have, but you just have to keep your eyes open, your
Yes.
ears open, yourself open
Yes.
to newer experiences.
Yes.
I'll be entering my 40th year next year, but
Okay.
I don't feel 40 at all. I don't connect. I don't. In fact, I don't connect with a lot of my people my age. I connect with the younger lot.
Okay.
I feel अंदर से कि अभी there's a lot of work to be done on me.
Okay.
I'm still around mid 20s or
Nice.
something. So, but that is not because of a midlife crisis. That is because of I feel that I'm still very curious, and I think that should be there.
Yes.
If the curiosity as a person dies, then I think what's the point? I mean,
Yes.
if you feel कि मुझे अभी सब आ गया है, तो then खत्म है ना अभी retire जब जाओ, just jump off some cliff then. But I like to keep myself. I never say that I know something
Right.
really well, because I'm still learning. I'm always going to have a new experience. I'm always going to learn something new. So I try to keep myself updated with what's happening. It may be the new Taylor Swift rage
Yes.
that is going on, or I try to be there. Sometimes I don't get it, but I try. But I
Right.
like to keep myself. Like to be like a sponge.
Got
I
it.
try to be like a sponge as much as I can. Just soak in as much as I can, because it may be the most useless information at that time. It may be the most useless thing I've seen at that time, but somewhere later it might help me in some way.
Yes.
Which is something which I read Walter Isaacson's the Steve Jobs book,
Okay.
and I may be wrong if I'm just remembering it
No
may be
stress.
wrong, but Steve Jobs, when he went to university, he liked a girl,
Okay.
and because he wanted to be closer to her, he joined a calligraphy class,
Okay.
and got nothing to do with his software
Yeah.
engineering or anything. But he did those
Yes.
whatever credits for calligraphy. But later on, all that knowledge of
Yes.
calligraphy, it helped in making
The Apple
you know,
font.
the Apple font, and there is a reason why there is a certain aesthetic to
Yes.
what Steve Jobs always did.
Yes.
So what knowledge can help you where and in what capacity is something you can't predict.
Right.
And I always try to keep, I still get amazed. I want to be amazed. I still laugh out loud when I see something funny. But it's not a great thing, or it's not some big thing that I'm doing.
Right.
But I've seen people lose out on that,
Yes.
and I feel very sad. I feel that people are becoming too bitter, too cynical, they think they have realized or they have decided that they are too smart.
Right.
I don't think I'm too smart. Even when I'm watching a film, I don't want to be smarter than the director.
Right.
Some people have that urge to be smarter than the director. They
Right.
always have to analyze something when they are watching.
Right.
They want to be a step ahead of the director.
Right.
I don't want to be a step ahead of the director. I have surrendered myself to the director. I have started his film because I want to hear his story. So I want to hear it the way he's telling it to me.
Right.
So I don't try to be smarter than anyone. That is why I feel that I get a good experience of it. I can experience it
Yes.
to the fullest that I can. The day I start becoming, create those walls of I'm really smart, then I'll not experience it fully.
Yes.
So I try to do that, and that's what probably keeps giving me inspiration,
Yes.
because then you're open, then you're exposed, then you meet someone, you read something, you see something on the news, and you feel that maybe I can't translate this incident into a film,
Yes.
but it may trigger something like what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Yes.
Of course, I don't know if I can translate that into a film, but it is going somewhere in my bank. It's
Yes.
going in my library,
Yes.
and through practice and, as I said, keep on writing. What you achieve is the ability to draw from that bank.
Right.
All of us experience different things, but a great writer or a great maker can sometimes have the ability to draw from that bank of experiences exactly what he or she wants.
Right.
So that is what I'm trying.
Very interesting. No, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I genuinely think and I genuinely feel that more and more people should become accepting that we don't know everything, and so even with my research with decision making, right? So one thing which I've realized very sincerely is when we use the word world, right? We think of the entire planet. But on this one planet, there are multiple worlds. There's a world of doctors, there's a world of engineers, there's a world of lawyers, then there's a world of teenagers, there's a world of elders, there's multiple worlds. And all of these different worlds have different realities. So essentially, when we talk about people living in, say, rural belts, that's the world of farmers. They are living a completely different reality than the world of, say, teenagers who are living in urban town centers.
Yeah.
They have a completely different reality. And I think films, I find them very fascinating and very interesting because to some extent, they play this role of bridging these different worlds and showing these different realities to these different worlds.
Yeah.
Now, people may not appreciate it completely. There might be flaws in terms of execution, but I think films in particularly play this very important role. And I think I would love to hear your point of view as well, just to elaborate on that thought. In terms of whatever is happening all around us right now, and again, it's an evolving situation always. Things keep on evolving. That's the nature of life. And you also mentioned that the characteristic of a great director or a good director is to pick up on these different realities, add it to your mental bank, and have that ability to draw from these ideas at will and translate that into a reality. In terms of the film that you want to produce, how do you develop this ability? How are there any exercises or how do you develop this ability basically?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't have the answer to that. I mean,
or is it something just that probably you're blessed with and that essentially
I don't
pushes?
know. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that practice keeps on making it better.
Right.
That I know for a fact, and I've experienced it for myself. That especially when you're writing something, then as I said, practice just keeps on making it better. It becomes easier. It becomes easier and easier the more you do it.
Right.
But I think it's a combination of sensitivity to what is happening around you, you having an opinion on it, and wanting to say something on it.
Right.
If you have nothing to say, like half of the times I feel today that people have nothing to say, and it need not necessarily be a big political statement.
Right.
It need not necessarily take a side that the world is asking you to take side, you're taking this side. But you need to have something to say. If you have something to offer to the world, just whatever is happening around you today, is it affecting you in any way?
Right.
If it is not affecting you in any way, what the world around, whatever is happening around the world, then it's fine. I mean, you're great. It's great. Good for you. I mean,
Right.
Do your thing. But the reason why people want to then tell a story is because somewhere what is happening around is affecting you,
Right.
and you have a reaction to that.
Right.
You have something to say to that about that. So, so I guess that's the only way that's the only thing I can understand
Interesting.
from it. That is the world around you affecting you or not,
Right.
and how strongly, and do you have a reaction to that?
Right.
And I was telling a friend the other day that I was talking with a friend who's also a therapist. It's not
Okay.
my therapist, he's a therapist.
Okay.
And I was telling him about the fact of not being able to switch off. And which I was talking about
Yes.
that, it's a way of life.
Yes.
You don't switch off. When
Yes.
you're doing nothing, you're working. So he was telling me, no, you need to not get affected by things. And I was like, but if I don't get affected, then what's the point of all of this?
Right.
For me, there's no point. Now it's fair for him to say that don't get affected by what's happening around you.
Right.
It's absolutely right for him to say that, it's good to have a monk-like way of looking at things.
Right.
That, Anido, I won't get affected. But for me, it's not possible. And for me, that is, through conflict or through the conflict around me is where the drama is going to come from.
Yes.
There is no drama if there is no conflict.
Yes.
So if nothing is affecting me, then what am I doing?
Right.
That's the only explanation I have. I don't have a much deeper
Got it. No stress.
explanation.
No stress. No, so there are a couple of examples which come to mind. So just talking to a friend in the afternoon as well. Jawan, we talked about Jawan as well. And your wife Kirija is also a part of that film.
Yeah.
So Jawan was a happy surprise. I saw that film a couple of days back. Another film which was a happy surprise was Rocky and Rani Ki Prem
Yeah,
Kahani.
very nice film.
It's a beautiful film. And if we just take out all the Bollywood masala, the underlying themes underlying topics which both of these films are touching are very interesting topics per se, right? So if we take the example of Jawan, there's a lot of political issues which they are trying to talk about. But it's coming not from a complaining point of view, but a solution providing point of view. It may be an extreme version of it because it's a film eventually. But they're taking a solution-based approach to what is happening right now in our reality. And same is the case with Rocky and Rani, where they're taking the themes of, say, two matriarchs fighting with each other, and how do you find a successor to a matriarch, or maybe it's this renegotiation of relationships, right? So I think these two are very happy surprises for me personally in terms of Bollywood films. But yeah, these were the two examples which came to mind. The reality that is around us right now, how it is affecting the choices of the films that we are producing, and again, eventually, the films that we are producing, they are also directly and indirectly influencing the behavior of the society in terms of what is normal, what is accepted.
You're right, but I also am of the opinion that there is no need to burden filmmakers with social messaging.
I agree.
We just sometimes want to tell a fun story.
Yes.
Don't burden us with changing the world.
Agree.
Don't burden us with giving a social message each time.
Right.
Or sometimes, and when I say that, is the world affecting you? I'm not necessarily saying that you should make a film which has a social message each time, or you should. Of course, your political stands come through your film,
right?
Whether you like it or not, or whether you even want to or not.
Right.
it is going to come through. But don't burden filmmakers with this notion. I mean, you would rather, I always tell people that burden your politicians with that.
Yes.
You know, don't burden filmmakers. They're just trying to make a film.
Yes.
We find a story nice, we make a film. It's as basic as that.
Yes.
It may be a as I said, rom-com. It may be a heist film.
Yes.
It may be. Let us have fun. Let us do
Yes.
our thing. You know, we just want to have fun and
Yes.
make good films and have fun making them.
Yes.
अभी उसके ऊपर ये मत टेंशन मत डालो कि अभी यार तुम social messaging भी करो. So
Right.
it's nice if that all comes together and
Right.
you have a film like Jawan or you have something like a Raju Hirani.
Right.
Can his brilliant brain manage to do? It's great.
Right.
But that's not our job.
Right.
You know, changing the world is not necessarily a filmmaker's job.
Right.
We want to, you know, we want to see people whistle in the theaters.
Right.
Filmmakers want to see people cry when they're meant to cry or
Right.
laugh when they're meant to laugh.
Right.
And this, it's actually a burden of, why aren't you making films talking about today? I
Right.
don't want to make a film talking about, or people troll Karan Johar that, kya tumhara student of, he
Right.
wants to make that film, let him make that film. I mean, I don't know, I get very, let people do what they want to do.
Right.
As simple as that.
Right.
The burden of changing the world, the burden of making things right,
Right.
जिनके ऊपर है, go and blame them.
Right.
They're running the country as they want, and we are
Right.
not questioning them. And of all the people, we are questioning poor filmmakers who have not left Warsaw half the time. You know, they don't know what's happening outside Mumbai.
True.
तो उनको कहाँ अभी ये burden डालते हैं? उनको मजा करने दो, हमको film बनाने दो.
Right.
आप जाओ, you go to a local corporator. I mean, people have not even, they don't even know the local corporator is.
Yep.
But they want a filmmaker to solve their issues. I mean, it's,
Yep.
I don't know.
No, because I think the limelight is on films and filmmakers and actors.
Yeah, because
So
then
they
the
become
public
easy
eye
targets
and,
to, you know,
like it's
for public
the same
outrage.
thing. I mean, why, like what happened with the, I mean, it may be very unpopular opinion, but I'll still say it. When Viraj scored his century,
Yeah.
and I think KL Rahul let him
Yeah.
score his century, and people were like, how could he do that? It's against the, I'm like, dude, I mean, the team is playing well.
Yeah.
Everything is happening well. There's a great spirit in the
Yes.
team. He wants to make a century. Who has, like, why are you making them your role models?
Right.
Have they asked you, have actors asked you, कि हमको अपना role model बनाओ?
Right.
तुम क्यों बना रहे हो? Have sportsmen asked you to make them your role model? Don't make them make your role model. There are people bigger than us,
Right.
bigger than actors, bigger than sports people, bigger than filmmakers,
Right.
who are your real role models, and you don't even look at them.
Right.
You know, you forget that they were assassinated. You know, you forget that they were in jail and died in jail.
Right.
Those are the people who are role models,
Right.
and not people who are on screen and wanting to have some fun. So
Right.
I mean, even with the audience is what to say. I mean, we love the audience because of this also, but
Right.
थोड़ा है अभी क्या करें.
I think it reminds me of that Kishore Kumar song. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना.
See, it's fun when it happens well. It's fun when the audience is, it's nice, but it's irritating when, you know,
Yeah.
there's unnecessary undue pressure put on, because the filmmakers have become soft targets.
Yes.
They've always been soft targets.
Yes.
Films have, or art generally has always been a soft target.
Yes.
It's nothing new. Like people say ki, oh, you know, there's problems with freedom of speech and filmmakers are not getting to do what they want and there is government pressure. That's been there for ages.
Yes.
It's not a new phenomenon. And, you know, in World War II, you had Riefenstahl who used to make films for the Nazis and propaganda films.
Right.
You've always had that. You've always had, you know, propaganda being used, I mean, artists being used for propaganda.
Right.
So, but I don't think, I mean, it doesn't matter.
True. True. I think let's zoom out. Again, so
I have no idea if any of this is making sense to anyone.
no problem. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. So any professional, right, be it any field, be it any industry, whenever they enter that field, they have this idea, they have romantic idea of some dream project that they want to work on, some dream client that they want to crack, some target that they want to achieve. I'm sure every filmmaker also has this dream, some version of dream project that they would love to work on, or a dream story that they would love to tell, and probably to an extent that okay, ये story एक बार बता दिया ना, तो चलो मेरा career का मैंने I've done my bit. Do you have some sort of dream project that you would like to work on in terms of films, or any big story that you would like to tell, something like that?
No. I mean, I would love to, but I don't. But no, I actually don't. Actually don't.
Fair enough. That is also fair.
Yeah.
No stress, no pressure.
No, but because you asked me, now I'm thinking, why don't I? Should I have one? I mean, if so many filmmakers have, maybe I should have one, but I don't.
No, but I think this is a good signal that the best days of your career are still ahead of you.
No, that तो I believe that they're still ahead, because अभी तक तो बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ नहीं है. But the best days are ahead only now.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going with the flow.
Okay.
You know, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not directing anything right now.
Right.
I'm producing right now.
Right.
But I'm enjoying it.
Right.
I want to direct something which I might attempt next year.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm going with the flow. So
Okay.
I've never had long-term goals
Okay.
in that sense. I've never had that. I've had very short-term, immediate goals,
Got it.
and I've never had any material dreams,
Okay.
or any concrete dreams that
Okay.
this is the end, or
Okay.
this is the ultimate.
Okay.
Like I've never had a sense of ultimate, or an attraction towards the ultimate.
Okay.
So I've always tried to go with the flow, which is probably the reason why I'm letting things happen the way they are. Of course, you can't just, flow with the water and not do anything to
Yes.
affect what direction you're going in.
Yes.
You want to have a direction. So yeah, so I mean, I try to do my stuff and trying to nudge myself into the direction that I
Correct.
want to go to. But those are all short-term leaps. I don't have a giant, ये मुझे करना है, and then I'll
Right.
be, as Jim Carrey said, then I'll be enough.
Right.
So I'm trying to take it one day at a time,
Okay.
and trying to, because you're also changing as a
Yes.
person. You keep on changing. I'm not the same person I was last
Definitely.
year. So what I liked last year, I don't like now. What I'm liking right now, maybe I'll not like tomorrow. So I'm trying to keep it as spontaneous and as spontaneous as possible.
No, I think there's certain beauty to it for sure, in letting things happen naturally, organically, and going with the flow. Because again, we talked about pressures, right? Undue pressures. Having that target in mind, having that big goal in mind, it of course also creates
Yeah,
expectations.
but
and
also I feel that
pressures.
what is
Yeah.
the ultimate? I mean, like let's say tomorrow I want to work with Shah Rukh Khan.
Right.
Let's say some people have a dream, or Shah Rukh Khan के साथ एक film करनी
Right.
है. But then after that, what do I do? I mean, should I stop?
Right.
Or no, of course not. Then what is the next after that?
Right.
Then I want to work with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
But then what? Okay, here you go.
Right.
Then what? So I'm guessing that that is also a trap to, I'm guessing, I don't know, that, or maybe, I've heard in many interviews people say that they receive an Oscar at a very young age,
Right.
and then they are like, अब
अब क्या?
मतलब तो अभी अपना ऑस्कर भी बहुत दूर की बात है, लेकिन what I'm trying to say is that if you have that fixation on that ultimate, suddenly if you get it, what after that? I mean,
Right.
are you going to stop after that? So maybe that's the reason why also I don't have a fixation of कि this is
Right.
the end point. I don't have an end point. I don't have an end game.
Right.
I don't want to stop when I have a 3 BHK in Bandra.
Right.
I don't want to stop when I have a Maybach
Right.
car or whatever. I don't want to stop when I work with Amitabh Bachchan.
Right.
I don't have an end point. So maybe, I don't know if it's good, bad, but that's how it is. I don't have an end point.
Right. No, I think so if you go to our website, funnily, the very first banner says there are no right or wrong decisions in this world.
I
And
mean,
there's no good or bad, there's no right or
and
wrong,
the
it's
thing
all
is-
contextual.
yeah, and the thing is, the only way in which I'll find out if this is right or wrong was time.
Exactly.
Time is the only,
Exactly.
I mean, time will tell whether I'm right or wrong. And if I was wrong, I'm wrong, I mean, khatam. And even like when people say great filmmaker or You can't. Great filmmaker. Who decides who filmmaker is great?
Right.
Time decides.
Yes.
When you look at a film made by Charlie Chaplin now, time has decided that, and
Yes.
that longevity has decided that Charlie Chaplin is a great filmmaker.
Yes.
Someone making a film today, time will tell if he's a great filmmaker. There are so many films that have won Oscar Best Pictures. They've aged so badly.
Yes.
You don't even know them. You do, Arey, हाँ, ये film भी थी.
Yes.
But some films have aged so beautifully
Yes.
that even now you like filming Citizen Kane.
Yes.
Even now you watch it, and you're like amazed. So time tells you everything. I feel.
Yes.
Let's see.
Interesting. On the topic of time, if you look at the last, so right at the beginning you mentioned, right, that filmmaking is a very nascent art form.
Yeah.
Just a few decades back, we had the first camera which came into play, which was nothing but essentially static images, and eventually we got into video, and then the entire field of cinema has developed rapidly. And in the last couple of decades, especially, technology has evolved a lot. The game of distribution has changed a lot. We've got new mediums, new platforms to put our films. Even in terms of making the films, the technology has evolved a lot, and it is evolving very, very, very rapidly. We have a lot more AI tools now who can create visualizations with simple prompts, which probably a CGI team would require a few days or few months at least. That can be now done in seconds. And this is just going to rapidly evolve further. How do you think this rapid evolution of technology is changing your segment of filmmaking, and where do you think films are going to take us, or where is filmmaking going in future in regards to this technological development?
One thing is for sure that it's become technologically easier to make a film.
Right.
The entry point, the entry barrier is much less. I mean, it's weakened a lot.
Right.
If you have, like today, the latest phones, if you have an iPhone or you have the flagship phone for any the big companies, there is a way to make a film on those phones even.
Right.
I'm not at all saying that it's phone uthao or film banao. I mean, you still need a lot of technical setup even if you're shooting on
Right.
on a phone to make it look the best possible. But it's become very democratized.
Right.
Anyone can make a film today. It wasn't that possible years ago. I am someone who really loves or loved the age of physical film stock.
Okay.
Like I watched a film a friend made a few days back, and which he shot completely in black and white.
क्या बात है?
And when after the film, the first thing I said to him was कि यार काश अभी film stock अगर होता.
Right.
Because I knew for a fact that you're watching a black and white movie, which is if it's shot on film, it just looks something
Okay.
else. So you are both deeply saddened by the fact
Okay.
that we don't have film anymore. But okay, that's a part of
Yes.
evolution. But what the digital medium has done is also incredible. I mean, it's you put a camera into anyone's hand.
Yes.
Now how you, as I said, they've given you that tool. Now what you do and how you harness that tool and how you make use of that tool, that's completely in your hands. So it democratized films. It's become easier to make films. So I think it's a welcome change. I am personally someone who doesn't like to demonize technology. I understand that there are many different opinions
Yes.
about that. Very close friends of mine are hardcore purists and who firmly believe that digital has ruined cinema. To some extent, maybe it has. I am of the opinion that it has really opened up doors for a lot of people to
Yes.
start telling stories. And you can take yourself a little less seriously also in all of this. So I am someone who really likes to embrace technology. Right now, in Hollywood and in America, we are seeing a lot of talk about how AI is going to affect
Right.
jobs of writers and actors, and people are changing their contracts to.
I think there was this big protest also, right?
Big protest, yeah. It was a
Screenwriters.
big strike.
Yes.
So AI is going to be something that everyone is waiting to see how it's going to impact. There is a huge section of writers and actors who, and rightly so. I mean,
Rightly
it's-
so. Yes.
they feel that it is going to really impact their jobs in a very, very direct way. We've already seen AI having an impact on in other in other professions. Like I read that yesterday, a liquor company, some liquor company somewhere in Europe or somewhere,
Okay.
a liquor company has appointed an AI robot as the CEO.
Is it?
Yeah. You look it up.
Okay.
So that's
This is news for me.
Yeah, that the AI
I'm
robot
definitely
is the
checking this
CEO
out.
of the company now.
Interesting.
So I mean, and in many processes, like I've heard some Indian company, I forgot the name, but they cut down nearly 20% of their staff and replace that with a machine learning an AI
Yes.
bot,
I
and
think,
customer addressal has come down.
Yes.
Like customer complaints have really come down because of that. Customer waiting time has come down because of that. Some shopping app, I think I forgot the
No,
name.
I think that's the story of Dukan.
Dukan, probably,
Yes.
huh? So we are seeing AI impact lives,
Yes.
many lives in different fields. We are seeing bad, what do you say, manifestations of that. You are seeing
Yes.
deep fake, and we are seeing all those things also.
Yes.
How it is going to hamper the final, like a writer, the human judgment,
Yes.
or the emotional judgment of a writer, or the spontaneity of an actor.
Yes.
How is it going to replace that? I can't see it right now, but I'm
Agree.
not a soothsayer. Amazing things have happened, which all of us have been amazed with.
Yes.
So the future is going to be amazing. Now, is it good, bad? What are we using the technology for? We can use it for the good, we can use it for the bad. So it's, but I'm someone who doesn't like to demonize the technology. I feel that it is available to us.
Yes.
Try to use it to the best possible way that we can.
Yes.
So I'm completely pro,
Got it.
at least seeing where we can go.
Got it.
I am also not a big doomsday prophecy believer that tomorrow the robots are going to take over and kill us all. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
वो हो भी सकता है, अभी क्या पता है
Who
यार,
knows?
क्या पता, हो
Again,
सकता
time will decide.
है, time will tell. But तो देखते हैं क्या होता है.
Right.
But I like to see what technology is bringing in, and now there's you have Unreal Engine, and you
Yes.
have virtual sets.
Yes.
There's the Mandalorian, which was shot inside
Yes.
a studio.
Yes.
With an Unreal Engine. So people are using technology of doing fantastic things.
Yes.
You have entire videos being made by AI.
Yes.
So yes, some jobs will go. Probably there's a hope that new jobs will
Yes.
arise, and there will be parity. There will be balance. So
Right.
time will tell.
Yeah.
There.
And then what about, so again, we talked in depth about AI per se, but there are these other technologies which are also evolving, right? So we have got VR, we have got AR,
Yeah.
and some development on holograms as well. Do you think these kind of mediums will kind of mesh into the filmmaking art someday, and we'll have AR films or VR films or, holographic
I think people have
films?
tried that. People
Okay.
have tried making films on VR. When VR came, I remember I was really excited
Okay.
with the possibilities of VR
Right.
and what you can do with it. But I don't think it took off. I think there
Right.
were a lot of technological issues with
Yes.
VR filmmaking,
Okay.
especially when people were dealing with height or the sense of height.
Okay.
Like when you're giving a sense to someone that you are jumping on rooftops,
Right.
from one rooftop to another,
Right.
or if you're walking a tightrope, when you're
Right.
giving that sensation.
Right.
VR was giving a sense of nausea, and there was
Okay.
some physical manifestations of that. So it just stopped, I think,
Okay. Okay.
midway in its tracks. But yeah, storytelling is you're going to embrace some things, you're going to reject some things. It'll be interesting. Like you have someone like James Cameron,
Right.
who's trying to use technology in a way to tell his stories
Right.
with the Avatar series.
Yes.
So you have someone like him. You have short form content.
Yes.
It's there right now, and that's also going to keep on growing. You have what Martin Scorsese hates. You had the Marvel series, and Martin Scorsese called them amusement park rides,
Yes.
which is fine. I mean, in his
Yeah. Everybody has their own point
and
of view.
I also sometimes feel this is just an amusement. It is an amusement park ride.
Right.
But so all of that it's going to change and keep on changing with technology, as I said, because I think storytelling is not, you cannot confine it to just one
Yes.
type. It is
Yes.
going to grow. It is going to explode. Wherever the story we see an opportunity, it's going to go, and it's going to happen there.
Yes.
So I really like whatever is happening. It's just going to make us easier to tell our stories. But I hope that we don't forget core human emotions, and we don't fall for uh, the experience, the glitz
Yes.
than the core emotions. I
Yes.
just hope that we don't fall for that.
True. True. One last question, probably from my side. So there's a lot of explosive growth happening on YouTube as well, right? Because there's a lot of, again, with technology and the democratization of the entire making process per se, YouTube is capturing a lot of attention from the audience. Is it becoming more and more difficult to retain audience per se for films? Because again, there's a lot of research which has also come out in terms of the reducing attention span of individuals, so on and so forth, the rise of ADHD per se. Do you think it is getting more and more difficult? Because even if we look at the last, films in the last couple of years, right, the duration of films is constantly getting reduced. So till a couple of decades back, it was very common to have a 3.5 hour film. But now the average duration is right around 2 hour mark. Even Hindi films are now getting around that same 1 hour 50 minutes, 2 hour mark. Do you think it's getting more and more difficult to retain the attention of audiences when it comes to films?
It is. I also think the audience are to blame. The kind of, I mean, it's becoming impossible to watch a film in the theaters these days.
Okay.
I hate it,
Okay.
and I'm someone who really loves watching films in the theaters.
Okay.
I'll prefer to watch a film in the theater.
Okay.
But I hate the experience of going in a theater now, because, I mean, you have people literally recording
Wow.
films on their phones, because, I mean, so like I had gone for Oppenheimer,
Okay.
which is a more than a 3 hour
Yes.
film. So I'd gone for the first show of Oppenheimer. Like it was literally the first show in Bombay, and I had gone on IMAX, and I wanted the IMAX experience. I got the best seats. You know, you have those seats that you always need for IMAX. I got this. So I was very excited, and these kids, young kids, they were clicking photos, so they were more excited that
Right.
they were watching Oppenheimer than watching Oppenheimer. You know, they were more excited that
Yeah.
they were actually there,
Right.
because they want to share it on social
Yeah.
media. Ki I was there.
First day,
I'm
first
like,
show.
dude, watch the film. You know, वो क्या चल रहा है वो देख ना.
Right.
वो फोटो निकाल रहा है, क्लिप्स निकाल रहा है, लोगों को भेज रहा है, अपलोड कर रहा है. Then you have live tweeting of that's happening during films. It is, then you
It's
have
destroying the experience
it's
of films.
destroy the experience. People chat and people talk. I don't like it. Some people like it. Some people say कि अरे नहीं, that's the community experience and ऐसा तो होने वाला वगैरह. I don't like it. I hate it when, and then flash on करके कोई जा रहा है, तो क्या scene चालू है, popcorn लेके कोई आ रहा है, मतलब but I still want to see it on the big screen, so I try to go for a show in which least number of people are going to come,
Right.
so that I can watch it at least with some peace. But I think it's the people have lost attention span completely, and I don't know. I'm putting the blame on the audience. Maybe the audience will say, "But people are not making interesting enough films
Right.
to get our attention, or if we don't have it's not our fault that we don't have a shorter attention span." So I don't know the answer to that, but it is happening. But then there are people like Nolan, and now even the Killers of the Flower Moon is more than 3.5 hours
Right.
long. But I guess it's possible for you to do that when you are a Scorsese or when you are a Nolan.
Right.
If a new filmmaker today says that I have a 3.5 hour film, बोलेंगे तू घर जा. You know, कौन देखने वाला है? You're not going to get theaters.
Right.
You're not going to get shows for that film.
Right.
You'll get half of the shows if 3.5 hour film.
Right.
You know, make a 2 hour film, as you said. So I understand but it is getting hard. You can't make more than a 2.5 hour film these days if you're not at that stature.
Right.
But there are people are consuming content on other places, you know, watching on OTT. But again, OTT it's great for some films, but sometimes you need that isolation. You need
Right.
to be alone, feel alone. You know, in the theater, when the lights go down, it's just you and the
Yes.
film that's happening in front of you. So you want that experience. You want
Yes.
that, you know, you're there in a vacuum, which OTT can't give. You know, there's a cooker whistling inside, your phone's is here, someone's crossing the frame all the time,
Yes.
the bell rings, and so you have to stop. So there is
Yes.
no immersion.
Right.
So that immersive experience, I think, is getting lost a bit. But don't think the big screen is going to die so soon
Right.
as an experience. So maybe what people are saying that it's the tentpole films that will survive. You know, it's all your superhero films. But
Right.
I'm really happy that there's a superhero fatigue.
Yes.
That's happening right now.
Yes.
Like today, there's a Marvel film releasing, and there's
I had
no
no
buzz.
idea about it.
There's
Even I was
even
shocked.
I had no idea. So that fatigue has arrived.
Yes.
The superhero fatigue has arrived, and at the same day, at the same time, you have a Scorsese film in the theaters. Everyone knows is there, at least in the
Right.
urban audiences. The urban audiences are watching different
Yes.
things than the non-urban. But I'm happy that at least people are rejecting that. You know,
Yes.
there is, and the studios also finally realize that, you know, क्या बोलते हो, सोने की अंडे देने वाली मुर्गी जो है वो अभी थक गई है, वो अभी
Right.
रुको थोड़ी देर अब.
Right.
So, but the immersive experience is something that we always will. Like if you see now in Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
there's a new performance arena that's opened up
Okay.
called the Sphere.
Oh yes, I've heard about it.
So you should check out the videos of the
Okay.
Sphere.
I'll do
It's
that.
this huge dome,
Okay.
and so it's almost as if you have a screen. Like now you have a
Right.
screen in front of you.
Right.
This screen is above you.
Right.
It's behind you.
Right.
And you two, the band, they were the first ones
Yes.
to perform
Yes.
in the Sphere. So if you see those videos of the Sphere, you'll see what an amazing immersive experience.
Right.
Now, when you have that technology, imagine where you can go with that.
Right.
You know, you have directors like Darren Aronofsky, who has directed many films.
Okay.
So he's now also creating a lot of non-fiction content. He's also making now a film on Elon Musk's life.
Okay.
So
That
you
would
know,
be an interesting film.
yeah, so if you look at what Darren Aronofsky could do with this technology, or what
Right.
these new filmmakers, how they can give an immersive experience
Right.
with this new technology. So immersion as an experience is not going to go. How are we going to navigate storytelling into that?
Right.
How are we going to keep the spirit of storytelling in that immersion
Right.
is something that I think maybe new directors will come who will keep, you know, वो झंडा पकड़ के रखेंगे.
Right.
So there's still hope. Going to the theaters and watching something together as a feeling, I think, is still there. And there is enough proof for that people are coming to the theaters once again.
Right.
Now let's see how it sustains. As a filmmaker, you want to, like, I would love to make a film like that.
Hmm.
You know, any filmmaker would love to make a film for the big screen.
Right.
And have people cheering and shouting and enjoying the film. So that attraction to, as long as filmmakers have that attraction towards the big screen, I think they'll find ways to make the big screen interesting.
Right.
So I think it's still very hopeful.
Definitely yes. No, and I think once the hope is lost, everything is lost. Hope is what runs the world.
Yeah.
Cool. So I am done with my questions. Probably we can take some questions from
Yeah,
the
sure.
audience. Anybody, if you have questions, you can go ahead and ask.
इतने हाथ ऊपर गए. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Please.
What's that one decision that you took personally which has affected maybe the cinema or the team around or the world? Like small proposition of decision making from an individual to the decisions for the company comes in. So is there some decision that you have taken which you recall that really impacted maybe your family, maybe your team, film fraternity?
That have affected my family and my team have mostly been wrong decisions that I've taken. But no, I think for me, that the decision that I take, even if it is a small decision, for me it is a really big decision. You know, if you know what I mean. Like if I'm wanting to make a film, wanting to make that film, I don't know what the ramifications of making that film are going to be in a larger scope of things. But for me, that is the most important thing in my life. I'm going to give that film 2 years of my life, 3 years of my life, do nothing else. So that is all that matters to me. How much does this decision matter to me and my, it's the most important thing for me. So I'm going to give it all I have, which is what probably makes it exhausting for me, as I said. But after a film is done, I feel completely exhausted because I've given it everything I have. So what are the larger ramifications of that? I've never thought of that. But if I had to count, there were jobs created, there were houses that could run, could function because our film was on floor and it was getting made. There were people who had an opportunity to bring their talent in front of everyone, who later on went to, do good work in their lives. I could be of some, I could be a medium for all those people when I decided to produce that film. Could affect their individual lives in some way. And then it's a hit or miss ratio. I yet want to make a film that will have, that kind of a deep impact of a comet striking Earth and destroying everything. I would love to make a film like that. But as of now, I don't think I've achieved that. But what I've achieved is 3 years of completely immersing myself into something that I really want to do. And for me, that's a big enough, brave enough decision to not do anything else and just do one thing. So I'm quite satisfied with that. But one decision I made that might have impacted, there's this, what do you call that, butterfly effect.
Yes.
That maybe, I don't know, maybe it has affected someone somewhere, which even I don't know. But I would like to believe that when I was in that space of mind, I could at least provide a platform for other people to be happy and to do what they wanted to do. And then hope that somewhere down the line, it may have helped them in some way. Maybe time will tell. I think now that's become a good escape route for me. If I don't have an answer, I can always say time will tell.
I've got a quote: "Time is the ultimate decision maker."
Yeah,
He
it
decides
actually
everything.
is.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Editing is the most crucial thing for
Yeah.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
Everything has been completed by a producer and a director. Then the editor has to do the final things.
Yeah.
So, who is the decision maker for this editing? Is a director also or completely editor's role?
So, the evolution of cinema is actually the evolution of editing. So cinema was what first? I mean, you had a camera which was put in front of, there are these films, if you go on YouTube, you will see workers leaving the factory.
Yes.
Those are one of the first few films. Train arriving at the station.
Yes.
It was just one camera put in one place and things were happening. Then when someone said that, okay, I can see everyone, it's a wide shot, I can see many people coming, but then I cut to a closer shot of one man.
Yes.
And I tell his story. When that cut happened, and when I went from a wide to a close, I started making a language of cinema.
Right.
I started using the language to tell a story.
Right.
That in this crowd, there was this one man.
Right.
And now I'm telling his story. So what was that cut? That was editing. I mean, so the evolution of cinema is actually the evolution of editing.
Right.
So which is why, in my opinion, because my education is in editing. I'm an editor myself. So the reason why I took up editing was because I felt and feel that it is probably one of the most important, craft to master if you want to know how to tell a story. So which is why I chose editing. And the relationship between a director and an editor, everyone has a different relationship, but it's a husband and wife relationship. That is why you will see that most of the big directors, the most successful directors, have always had the same editor. They rarely change their editors. They will change everyone else. Like Steven Spielberg has stuck to Michael Kahn for the longest time. Martin Scorsese works with Thelma Schoonmaker for the longest time. Mani Ratnam works with Shrikar Prasad only. So that is because they know that this relationship is the most crucial one.
Right.
It is said that a film gets written twice. Once it's written on the writer's table and the second time written on the editor's table. That is because that role is so crucial.
Right.
So an editor has to be completely objective about the material. When a director is making his film and he has grandiose thoughts about then this will happen and then that will happen and wo hoga और ये फिर ऐसा होगा. And sometimes what happens naturally happens that you really fall in love with what you've done. You really feel that this is brilliant. This is a beautifully composed shot, and it is. This is a beautiful scene, and it is. But yes, this scene is beautiful, but in the fabric of the film, it doesn't fit. Even though it's the best scene of the world,
Yes.
in the story of the film, in the language of the film, this scene doesn't fit. Or it's slowing the film down.
Right.
Or it's giving away, distracting you from the actual story. In some way, it's a problematic scene. But in individuality, that scene is the best scene in the world.
Right.
So the editor has to be articulate enough, brutal enough, sensitive and insensitive enough to convey to the director in the best way possible that you may have done this brilliant scene, but I am going to delete it because it is not working for the film. And that relationship of trust between the director and the editor is of utmost importance.
Right.
That the director should have that faith in the editor that yes, because that happens to everyone, that you see the footage so many times that you lose objectivity. Like many of the shows that I work on, after a point if someone asks me show कैसा हुआ है, I'm like मुझे नहीं पता, और film कैसी हुई है, I said मुझे नहीं पता, because I really don't know how it is.
Right.
I've lived so much with it, right from the writing process to the making process to the editing process. I really don't know. So an editor gives you that objective eye and says that no, you may have done this, but in this context, in the context of this film, this doesn't work, or this
Right.
works, or do this or do that. And he has the power to create something out of nothing. So he may save your ass.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's probably the most important relationship to have in a film is the director and the
Interesting.
editor.
I think that's a very interesting insight.
Yeah.
Very
And because, yeah, sorry.
मराठीत
Oh, विचारा ना, please.
लेखकाला काही अधिकार असतात का की हे मी लिहिलंय हेच मला तुमच्या फिल्ममध्ये पाहिजे का फक्त डिरेक्टरनी सांगितलेलं किंवा जे कोणी त्यांचे इतर ऑथॉरिटीज असतील नाही आम्हाला हे पाहिजे तेच तुम्ही लिहून द्या तर तेच त्यांनी लिहिलं पाहिजे की नाही मला ही माझी संहिता आहे ह्याच्याप्रमाणे मला अमुक अमुक लिहून पाहिजे आहे हे त्या रायटर असतो तो डिमांड करू शकतो का
ते लेखक कोण याच्यावर पण खूप अवलंबून आहे की लेखक कुठल्या पोझिशन मध्ये आहे, तो किती मोठा लेखक आहे.
म्हणजे तो कधीतरी सुरुवातीला तर तो नवीनच असणार ना पण मग तेव्हा जर का त्यांनी त्याचा आवाज नाही ठेवला तर तो कधी मोठा होणार मग तो कधी स्वतःचा आवाज ठेवणार
नाही. पण कधी कधी काय होतं की दिग्दर्शक जेव्हा त्या संहितेकडे बघतो आणि म्हणतो की मला ही काहीतरी असू शकतं ना चूक, म्हणजे लेखकाचं पण चुकू शकतं आणि दिग्दर्शक म्हणू शकतो की मला हे नको आहे, मला हे अपेक्षितच नाही आहे, मला हे अशा प्रकारे करायचं आहे. तर लेखकाला तेवढी फ्लेक्झिबिलिटी असलीच पाहिजे की आपण
मी
ते
म्हणत
तयार
नाही
करू.
की स्टकअपच पाहिजे
हां
पण आत्ता जे आपण आत्ताच्या मालिकांमधनं किंवा ह्याच्यातनं जे बघतो ते जे काही पाणी ओतलं जात आहे ना
हां
इम्पॉसिबल आहे ते मूळ लेखकाची संहिता आणि त्याच्यामधनं आत्ता जे आपल्या समोर येत आहे ना त्याच्यामध्ये टेरिफिक डिफरन्स आहे.
पण
काही संबंधच नाही.
टेलिव्हिजन हा एक ना हा एक वेगळाच विषय आहे.
नाही टेलिव्हिजन नाही
म्हणजे मालिका म्हणाल म्हणून म्हणाला ना की मालिकांमध्ये तर ते वेगळंच प्रकार मालिका या कलेकरता कमीच आहेत, मालिका या ॲडव्हर्टायझिंग करतात.
नाही पण मग इथे हा लेखक दिग्दर्शक एडिटर हे सगळे ही टीम जी तुमची फिल्ममध्ये काम करते तीच इथे काम करते
नाही ना, नाही पूर्णपणे वेगळी टीम असते, पूर्णपणे त्याची गणितच वेगळी आहे आणि त्याची इट्स मालिका ॲडव्हर्टायझिंग करतात, या बाकी कशा करता नाही आहे. त्यामुळे
काही
त्याच्याकडे
फिल्म्समध्ये पण आपण असं बघतो ना आपण सुरुवात एके ठिकाणी झालेली असते आणि शेवट आणि सुरुवात यांची काही लिंकच नसते.
हो
मग हे
फसलेली
कुठेतरी त्या लेखकाची जी सुरुवात करून दिलेली असते तिथे तुम्ही शेवट नाही ना.
नाही पण हे कसं होतं की आपण हे आत्ता गृहीत धरतोय की लेखकाला काहीतरी म्हणायचं होतं आणि ते दाबलं गेलं, आपल्याला माहीत नाही की त्या पूर्ण प्रक्रियेमध्ये चूक कुठे झाली. हे आपण गृहीत धरतोय की चूक दिग्दर्शकाने केली किंवा चूक निर्मात्याने केली किंवा चूक नटाने केली.
नाही, चूक मी म्हणत
हे चूक नाही म्हणतो की फसली म्हणजे कुठली गोष्ट फसते तेव्हा ते
अशा
आपण
वेळेला
आपल्याला
त्या
कळूच शकत
लेखकाला
नाही की
निर्णय
कुठून.
नसतात का काही लेखकाने?
पण लेखकाचं कशावरनं बरोबर.
की नाही मला हे असं मांडायचं होतं,
पण हा
मला
लेखकाचा
ते लिहायचं होतं.
नाही, पण हा मीडियम जे म्हणालो की सिनेमा हा दिग्दर्शकाचा मीडियम. सिनेमा इज डिरेक्टर्स मीडियम. थिएटर इज ॲक्टर्स मीडियम. थिएटरमध्ये तुम्ही कायम त्या ह्याच्याकरता म्हणजे तो गोष्ट सांगतो. लेखकच लिहिणार म्हणजे तेंडुलकर विजय तेंडुलकरच लिहितात शेवटी. तेंडुलकरांचीच संहिता असते. पण शेवटी ती तेंडुलकरने लिहिलेली जेव्हा नाना पाटेकर करून दाखवतात किंवा नाना पाटेकर जेव्हा ते करतात तेव्हा तो जो इम्पॅक्ट असतो तोच तेव्हाच येतो. ती गोष्ट तो नट सांगणार आहे, ही गोष्ट हा दिग्दर्शक सांगणार आहे. त्यामुळे दिग्दर्शकाची कुवत जी आहे त्या कुवतीप्रमाणे होतं. त्याच्यामुळे लेखकाचं म्हणजे मला दोन्ही मी खूप लेखकांच्या बाजूनी लढणारा माणूस आहे किंवा मला कारण माझे वडील लेखक आहेत त्यामुळे मला लेखक आवडतात आणि मला वाटतं कायम की लेखक आपल्याकडे काय जर कमी असेल व्यवसायामध्ये ते लेखक आहेत आणि आपल्याला चांगल्या लेखकांची गरज आहे. त्याच्याकडे नाही आहेत दुर्दैवाने. पण प्रत्येक वेळेला ती नक्की गणलं कुठे हे पिनपॉईंट करणं फार अवघड आहे की ते लिखाणाच्या प्रक्रियेत गणलं का किंवा दिग्दर्शकाने कुठे चूक केली का निर्मात्याकडनं काहीतरी आलं. आणि हे तोच प्रश्न आहे ना तुमचा. मी काही उलटे चूक हे टँजंट बोलत नाही ना मी.
परफेक्ट.
हां तर ते पकडणं फार अवघड आहे कुठे चुकलं. मग त्या लोकांना विचारावं लागेल मग की तू काय लिहिलं होतंस ते मला दाखव. म्हणजे ते त्याप्रमाणे अॅनलाइज करावं लागेल की तू काय लिहिलं होतंस ते मला दाखव, मला वाचायचं आहे कारण हे असं कसं झालं.
मला ते म्हणायचं
हां
की सुरुवातीला काहीतरी एक तुम्हाला स्क्रिप्ट हे तुम्हाला म्हणजे नॉट
हां कळलं मला कळलं.
काहीतरी एक मी हे स्क्रिप्ट लिहिलंय हे मी तुम्हाला दिलेलं आहे.
हां
मग त्याच्यावरती तुम्ही आणखीन तुमचे काही स्क्रिप्ट रायटर असतील, आणखीन काही तुमचे डायलॉग रायटर असतील, तुम्ही त्यांच्याकडे हे दिलेलं आहे. मग त्यांनी याच्यामध्ये घाटापट मग ह्याच्यामध्ये तो लेखक बोलू शकतो का की नाही हे मला हे म्हणायचं नव्हतं, हे तुम्ही हे असं करताय की हे मला हे इथे अपेक्षित नाही आहे की हे एखादा लेखक असा बोलू शकतो का, हा तो त्याचा निर्णय घेऊ शकतो का की हे नाही मला मग ही तुम्ही माझी संहिता वापरू नका.
हां मग तो एक व्यावसायिक निर्णय झाला म्हणजे माझ्यामध्ये तो एक व्यावसायिक निर्णय झाला. म्हणजे आता मी उदाहरण द्यायचं झालं तर मी एका पुस्तकाचे जर राईट्स घेतले आणि पुस्तकाच्या राईट्स म्हणजे कॉन्ट्रॅक्टमध्ये मी ज्या काही गोष्टी लिहून घेतल्या आहेत त्याप्रमाणे माझं ठरणार की मी काय बदलणार आणि काय नाही ते. जर लेखकाने मला पूर्ण हक्क दिले आहेत की तुम्हाला हवं ते करा, माझं काही म्हणणं नाही, मला इतके इतके पैसे द्या, मला मोकळं करा, मग मी कितीही बदलीन. मग लेखकाने तुम्हाला सांगितलंच ना, मला हक्क दिलेच ना तू आता, मग आता मला सांगू नकोस. किंवा जर असं झालं की लेखक जे आहेत ते डॉक्टर सतीश आळेकर आहेत आणि ते मला म्हणाले की याच्यात काय बदलायचं नाही किंवा हा जो एक प्लॉट पॉईंट आहे हा बदलायचा नाही किंवा हे जे पात्र आहे ह्या पात्राला बदलायचं नाही आणि मी ते बदललं आणि ते कॉन्ट्रॅक्टमध्ये होतं की हे बदलायचं नाही, तर ते अगदीच म्हणू शकतो खडसं की तू हे कसं केलंस, मी तुला सांगितलं होतं. तर शेवटी ते कोणाला कोणाची गरज आहे, पॉवर गेम आणि कोण कोणाच्या वरचढ आहे शेवटी त्यातच आलं ना, जे आपल्या घरी असतं तसंच भावाभावांमध्ये तर ते शेवटी तसंच आहे आणि ते बदलत राहतं. म्हणजे ते गणित कधीच सारखं राहत नाही. ते प्रत्येक वेळेला प्रत्येका फिल्ममध्ये म्हणजे मला प्रत्येक फिल्मचा डील वेगळा असतो, प्रत्येक दिग्दर्शकाबरोबरचा प्रत्येक डील वेगळा असतो. सो इट्स ऑलवेज इन फ्लक्स, ऑलवेज कीप्स ऑन चेंजिंग. त्याच्यामुळे I hope we.
Thank you very much.
Any last questions? Good. So before we wrap up, as we were talking before starting this episode, if there are any aspiring filmmakers, I would love for them to watch this episode and take some practical insights to become better decision makers, to become better filmmakers. Any parting thoughts from your side? Any parting advice in terms of what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and how they should build themselves or develop themselves as
First of all, don't listen to me. Or don't listen to anyone above the age of 30.
Okay.
Just do what you need to do.
Right.
Because I think my, what do you say, advice is more towards the elder people.
Okay.
That let the kids be. let them do their stuff.
Right.
I see directors and filmmakers who are now judging the new filmmakers
Yes.
and say कि ये हो गया वो हो गया. I'm like कि you've done your bit with great respect. Now let the kids do their thing.
Yes.
So it's at the same time there has to be, I mean, show respect, no doubt about that. Give respect where it is due.
Yes.
But at the same time, reject everything that you have heard anyone give you advice on, because you are going to make mistakes. You are going to find out your own, problems in yourself. You're going to have to deal with that, and no amount of advice is going to help you. Just stay away from people who give you advice.
Very
Is
interesting.
what I will advise. I would advise the elder people to stay away from giving any advice.
Okay.
We have enough moral policing in
Yes.
the world. We don't need any more. So stop judging. Stop judging and just keep your eyes, as I said, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep yourself open to what is happening, experiences coming in,
Yes.
and yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Suhrud. It
Thank
was
you.
a fun conversation, fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
I know that there are a lot of other questions I still have in mind. Probably we can do a episode 2 sometime soon. But
It's the sequels are the rage these days. Everyone wants to do a sequel.
definitely,
So
yes.
you never know. You can get a cameo the next time.
We'll definitely try something. Cool, but thank you so much for giving us time.
Thank you.
Wish you a very, very happy Diwali.
Wish you everyone happy Diwali.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We had Suhrud on this episode talking about all the different decisions that go behind making a successful film. I hope you had some practical insights from this session and hope you enjoyed this conversation. We'll come up with the next episode sometime very soon. Thank you for watching. This is Prathamesh and you are watching the Civilization Project podcast.